busted.
Hi book lovers, this is Jenny, Julia Baby Jen's Reading Room, and this is my top favorite reads of 2013 so far. A category I have for you is my favorite category, I think, YA Fantasy. So I have Asunder by Jodi Meadows. This is actually my favorite book cover of the year so far too. Love this book cover. This is the second book in the New Soul series. And the first one was Incarnate, which came out last year, and I read and I loved it so much. It was one of my top 2 favorite reads of the year. Asunder I didn't love as much as Incarnate, but I still really loved it. I don't know where to rate it yet as far as all my other books, but I would probably rate Eleanor and Park and 10 Tiny Breasts and Clockwork Princess a little bit higher than this one. This, I call it a fantasy series, and actually it could be classified as dystopian as well. It's kind of a dystopian fantasy. The first book is a lot more fantasy than dystopian, and this one is where the dystopian element really comes in. We kind of get a taste of it at the end of the last book, but we don't know what any of it means. This one we're starting to learn a lot more about the society and why it's a dystopian, because no one even knows it really is, except for our main character Anna, because she's new. So you can read my reviews on these. I just really love this series so much. I think it's so inventive. I think this series is the most inventive thing I've read from YA for a long time. Just how the author came up with this, I have no idea, but it's so awesome, and I love the whole idea of it, and I really can't wait to read the next one. The last one in the series comes out next year, and it's called Infinite, and that cover is also really gorgeous. The next one I have is The Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I haven't read the second book yet. I probably will before the end of the year. I really loved this fantasy. You could also classify it as paranormal because it is about demons and angels, but mostly demons. But I'm thinking it just feels much more of a fantasy. It's not a high fantasy. It's a normal world we have. It's within our own world, kind of like Harry Potter. And it was so cleverly written. The first half I liked better than the second half. Things change after about halfway through, and we start to learn everything about what's going on. And while that's great, I was like really confused for a while because it felt like we went off topic. First half we, had this one story going, and then all of a sudden we have this other story. I couldn't figure out how it all tied together, but eventually it does, and it made sense. And so I love that, and I really can't wait to see how the next one turns out. I've heard it's even better, so that will be really awesome to read. Next I have The Crown of Embers by Rae Carson. This is the second book in the Girl of Fire and Thorns series. The first one is The Girl of Fire and Thorns, which I read last year, I think last summer actually, and I just loved it so much. It's a great fantasy. I really love it, and it's so different. This book came out I think last October, and I just finally got around to reading it sometime this year. And oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go buy these books. I just love them so much. This one was even better than the first one, and I loved it so much. So great. It is just the main character. The changes the main character has to go through is just amazing. I just love it, and we kind of had a cliffhanger ending on this one, so I really want to read The Bitter Kingdom, which comes out soon. I think it comes out in September. So I'm really excited to get to read that one too and find out how it all comes out. But yeah, this is just, I can't rave enough about it. I'm not going to go over too much of what it's about because it would give away too much from the first one, and it's really hard to sum up quickly. But it's just a really good fantasy, and it actually does involve religion. It's kind of a new religion, but it's still called God. I mean, it's I would call it a version of Christianity, but not quite. There's no Jesus really in the teaching. It's really its own religion, and her and Elena, the main character, it's her whole being is wrapped up in that. She's kind of a chosen one for God. So I love how it ties that in, but it's not real heavy, and it does kind of debate, I mean, a lot of theological ideas, which is kind of neat in a strange way. I really love how it adds that extra depth to it. So that's really cool. And then the romance in it, there's two different romances. The first book is its own romance, and the second book has its own romance. And I'm hoping the third book continues with the second, because the second romance was so awesome. I loved it. And it wasn't really a full romance either. It was just really cool. So that was one of my picks, another 5-star read. And the last one I have for this category is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Another really good fantasy, another 5-star read for me. I can't wait to read the sequel. Just really good main character. I loved how she was kind of a bad character. I mean, not a bad character, considered a bad guy, I guess, a bad person. And how she tried to redeem herself. And I just really, really liked it. I thought it was a great world, great characters, great action, great everything. It was just an amazing, amazing story, and I can't wait to read the next one. The next category I have, I'm going to classify as YA Paranormal, and basically it's kind of like fantasies revolving around certain paranormal creatures. And I have quite a few in this category, so bear with me, but these are all 5-star reads. First off, I have Vanquished by Nancy Holder and Debbie Begay. This is the third book in the Crusade trilogy, and this is about vampires. But there's also werewolves and witches and fairies and everything else in it too. But the main paranormal creature is vampires, and they're not the good variety either. This is the third book, so at this point, it's all out war, and this is on a global scale type of a story. It's basically humans against vampires is the war, and most of the other paranormal creatures are staying out of it because they know how bad vampires are. In these books, the vampires are awful. They're the meanest, horriblest things ever, and they have no respect for anything other than themselves, and barely even that. So, the main characters are Jen and Antonio. Antonio is a vampire, but he's the only known good one in the world. He is very religious, believes in God, and is trying to basically repent his ways. He didn't become vampire by choice, and he's just a really awesome guy. He and Jen kind of fall in love throughout the series, but by this point, things are pretty bleak. This is a very dark series. They have a Team Salamanca, from Spain. They have different teams around the world who are trained by certain colleges on how to kill vampires, and they go out and they try to kill them. They normally, on this church, or this school is in a monastery. And Father Juan is the main leader of the team, I guess you could say. And the way theirs works is they have a special potion that they train whoever wants to be trained to be a vampire. Then they have this test at the end, and whoever wins this test gets this potion that makes them a lot stronger, and they can fight vampires better. And I forget what they call them in the books. But this particular school, there was 5 of them that graduated, or no, 6 of them that graduated, that he actually made the warriors. But he gave the potion to one of them who was their leader, Erico. And so these 6 of them are supposed to fight. Now, this is what makes this series, is these 6 characters, and then eventually a 7th character who gets thrown in. They are just amazing, amazing characters. The whole story is great, and the war and all of the elements to it are really, really good. But what makes this story so great is the characters and all their infallible abilities. So we have Jen, who is the most normal of all of them, and most of the book is kind of told from her viewpoint, although it's not a first-person narrative. And she's from California, your normal girl, but has found out that her father is basically evil and conspiring with vampires, and that's kind of what pushes her to go. Her grandfather was a big revolutionary and figure, and her grandmother always talks about that. He's dead now, and so that's what she wants to be too. Antonio is, like I said, the vampire, the only known vampire that's good, and he and Father Juan are very close, and he's also on their team. Then we have Holger, who is the only werewolf on the team, and probably the only werewolf who actively fights vampires. But he is after, he has a grudge against vampires, and that's why he's part of the team. And he's like a big teddy bear. He's the sweetest guy ever. And then we have Erica, who's from Japan, and she was very ignorant about vampires before, and her two best friends were killed by them. So she has a grudge there too. And then we have Sky, who is one of my favorite characters. She's the witch of the group, and she's the only known witch that fights vampires as well. And she is just pure good heart. She's really the most pure one of the group, but she's willing to do what she has to fight these vampires. And there is, did I get everybody? Jamie. Jamie is from Ireland, and he was an Irish freedom fighter for a while, but his whole family was killed by vampires, so he has a major grudge. And actually, he doesn't like werewolves either, so his thoughts are always about killing Holger. One day he swears he's going to kill Holger. So we have a lot of animosity in this group. Some of them love each other and some of them hate each other, but they work really well together as a fighting unit. So that's pretty cool. What else can I tell you about this series? It's just really good. I think that it was one of the best endings I've read for a trilogy. It didn't shortcut anything. It was a good long fight at the end. The entire book was a big long fight. Anytime they would stop to catch their breath or try to strategize, something would happen and they'd be fighting again. So, and it looked really hopeless for most of the book. Like, you didn't see any way that they could come out of all this, all of them alive, or even close to beating the vampires. So, you know, it was really good that way, and then just the ending was great, and lots of action. They didn't shortcut anything. It was, it's very gory, very bloody. It's a very dark series, but if you like good paranormals, this is, I don't know, if you're gonna pick a good vampire series, I think this is my favorite. I really like this series. And another vampire series, this is Spirit Mound by Michelle Mead. This is the 5th book in the Vampire Academy series. I have not read the last book yet. I need to. I read this one like in January. I started reading this series last fall, and I really do love this series. It's a really good series. So I had to put this in my top paranormal. This is the only one I've read this year from this series. But it's really good. If you like vampire stories, Vampire Academy is a really good one, and I'm not sure why I waited so long to read it, because it's a lot better than a lot of other ones that I've read. Beautiful Redemption by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. This is the last book in the Beautiful Creatures series. This is the 4th book and the last book, and this was definitely the best of the series. Maybe the first one was just as good too, but it was a really good ending. I really, really love this book, and I was so glad I did, because the middle two, just the second book was pretty good. The 3rd book I thought was really kind of not very good at all. I mean, I'm surprised I made it through it, really, to be honest, and that's why I don't really, as a whole, recommend this series to people, because I think it really does take a specific reader to like this series. It's very different, very wordy. I don't know, it's a different style, and it's a southern style, I guess, if you wanted to put that on it, where it takes a long time getting to the point. And maybe I don't mind that. I don't know. Big books generally don't bother me. Big wordy books don't bother me either. So if they're really well written. And they were really well written, very descriptive. But some people thought overly so. So, I don't know. But this book, really, really loved. It was a great ending. It was absolutely beautiful. Beautiful writing at the end. I cried at the end, and it even had an ending page. It really finished up the series really well, really well, and I was so happy about that. And the last two I have for you are the 1st and 2nd books in a series, the Cahill Chronicles, Book 1, Born Wicked, and Book 2, Starcurse, which I just recently read this one. Born Wicked I read right at the beginning of the year, I think. Oh, maybe it was February, I can't remember. This is a story about witches, obviously, and actually it's historical. It takes place about the time in America where they were burning witches at the stake, or shortly thereafter. I guess it's a little thereafter. And it's kind of a fictional fantasy world. It's still our world that was then, but it was ruled by a group called the Brotherhood, who were basically a group of guy priests, I guess you could say, who preached the word. And basically it was all about pushing women down, making sure that women had no power, and any woman that basically did anything that disagreed with their ideology they called a witch. And at this point they locked them up in this horrible mental institution type thing. Way back before, they burned them at the stake. This is the main character is Kate, and she has two sisters, Mara and Tess, and she's the oldest. And they're all three witches. Their mother was a witch, but she's died, and she's trying to lead her two sisters. Well, she finds out there's a prophecy that might concern the three sisters. One of them is going to be the most powerful witch in the land and lead witches out of oppression and defeat the Brotherhood. And she's dealing with that, and at the same time she's almost 17. When the girls are 17, they must either decide, they have to stand up in church and declare whether they're going to be married to a man, and then they can choose their man they want to marry, or they can say they want to get married but they don't have a choice, and then in that case the Brotherhood picks a man to marry for them. Or they can join what's called the Sisterhood, which is the exact opposite of Brotherhood. It's a group of basically non-sisters who serve the poor. They give charity, but they're about religious studies, and they have a little school there. Well, her mother, the way her mother talks about the Sisterhood, Kate doesn't trust them. She thinks there's something dark to them, so she doesn't trust them. She doesn't want to join them. So she's trying to decide who she wants to marry, because she doesn't want the Brotherhood to pick for her. Usually when they pick for a girl, they pick some old widower, and who wants that when you're 17? Plus, they always, usually you would have to marry someone in the Brotherhood, and that would not be a good thing for a witch, because you'd have to hide everything. As it is, she has to hide from the servants, the three of their powers, and her father. So it's a really good story, and it's the middle of it gets even more complex when she actually falls in love with someone who she really shouldn't be marrying either. But it's really good, and the end was completely, I completely understood the ending, and it made sense, but it was completely, I guess, unexpected in some ways too. And then Starcursed, we move on from the first one. In this one, she's joined the Sisterhood not by her choice, and she's trying to mend her broken heart and live on and figure out this prophecy. Eventually, things really bad start happening with the Brotherhood. They know about the prophecy too, and they're really aggressively finding any girls that do anything wrong and locking them up. They're even starting to torture some of them really badly. So things are really bad, and Kate feels like a big old, I don't know, she just feels horrible because all these girls are getting tortured and everything, and they're obviously probably not part of the prophecy. A lot of them aren't even witches. So she just feels bad that she's hiding in the Sisterhood, so they can't get her or her sisters. So this one gets more and more extreme, and the ending has a huge twist on the last 2 pages that I just wanted to pull out all of Mara's hair. I did. I honestly wanted to throttle her and kill her. It was just one of the most horrible things you could ever do to a sister. You could do to anybody, but especially your sister. And I felt so bad for Kate. She always has the short end of the stick. Nothing ever seems to work for her, and it's not like she doesn't try, and her heart's always in the right place. But I really hope things come out better in the 3rd book, because this one was a great story, but at the end I just could not believe that ending. Then we have Boundless by Cynthia Hand. This is a 3rd book in the Unearthly series, and it's about fallen angels, and I really love this series a lot. And this was a great 3rd and final book to a series. I was really happy this year. I read a lot of ending books to series, and most of them really panned out well, which, I think that's awesome. Even though there were some books in the middle of the series that I didn't always like, not specifically this series, but I just think that's awesome that you stick through the series and you get rewarded so well in the end. So that just makes it all more worthwhile to continue my series and finish them up. which I have a lot I still need to finish up. But this one I was thrilled to love it, and I think I read it all in a day. It was so great. I couldn't put it down. It was an amazing story. So I was really glad to put this on my list. Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. Another one of my top picks for the year entirely over all the different books I've read. This one stands out, and probably the best one out of this genre that I picked. I can't really talk too much about it because I don't want to give anything away, but oh wow, this was a really good ending to a series. It was beautifully written. I cried so much at the end. It was just beautiful, and I had no idea how Cassandra Clare was going to wrap all this up to make everybody happy, but she kind of did, and that's hard to do. I mean, it wasn't real realistic sometimes at the end, but I didn't care. I was just happy that things worked out really well for everybody, as best as you could hope. And there's so many quotes I love in this book. The writing was just, like I said, just gorgeous. She must have spent a long time perfecting that, because it was just really well written. I mean, I don't think I could gush enough about it. It's just a really good book. I love this series so much. I don't think I'll be nearly as happy with the Mortal Instruments series, and I haven't been nearly as happy. I do like this one better. Maybe because of the setting, Victorian London, I love that. But also just the characters are so much more in this one. I don't know. She's got a whole bunch of more series coming up for the Shadowhunters and I think like 3 or 4 more series that she's going to write concerning this world, all at different places and different times. So we'll probably get to know a whole bunch of new characters too, but so far, this one's going to be hard to beat. This was a really good book. My last favorite paranormal read of the year so far was In Blaze by Jessica Shervington. This is the 3rd book in the Violet Eden chapters is the name of the series, and it's a angel series. One of the best I've read. I really, really, really love it. It's a little more adult in content, and just they're older, and some of the people the main character Violet fights with are much older than she is. She's the youngest by far. Most of them are much older than she is. So it's a lot more. It's actual kind of an angel war type of thing between fallen angels and angel warriors. That's what she is. Her mother was one. She was born to be one. This is the 3rd book, and I just love this series so much. It gets better and better each book. If you really like angel books, this series is definitely one to check out. And the romance, the somewhat romance, I should say, because they're not really dating, although they've tried, between Link and Violet, is amazing. It's really awesome. Link is an awesome character. He's one of my book boyfriends that I really, really like. And so yeah, this is a great series. The first one is Embrace. The second one is Entice, and this is In Blaze. It just came out this year. And there is another 2. I think there's going to be 2 more. The next one is Endless, and I'm not sure when it comes out, but I will be looking forward to that.
Busted!